Stephen. The 86th legislative session officially comes to an end today. So what have lawmakers accomplished or need to get done? Here this morning, our Republican strategist, Jackie Bally, and Democratic strategist, Dallas Jones. Good morning to you both, and thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Okay, now, public school funding was one of the main priorities of the session, and it has passed. So I guess teachers are going to be getting a raise, as well as librarians and a few others. But this includes more than $6 billion, which includes that bump in teacher pay. Good or bad?
Yeah, our governor, even the first time he ran, has always said public education was one of his top priorities. And he really set the tone with the budget and when he outlined his policies, having an $11.5 billion bill that just passed, and it's now, public education is now being funded 45% by the state. It's a very positive move. You saw in that bill property tax relief. You also saw, as you mentioned, the hike for teachers' pay, and most importantly, with low-income students, they now have more opportunities like free pre-K all day long. So there are a lot of really good points that are coming out of this bill, and I'm even hearing some Democrats are happy.
Well, I think it's a good start. It's a good starting point, and look, Democrats are about what's good for our state, and so if we believe that there is a measure that can help to better educate our children and our next generation, we're going to be supportive. We're not in the tradition of just being obstructionists just to say that we are, and so there are some very good things in this bill. It's the biggest investment in public education we've made in Texas since the reality, and the court has told us that we have to reform our Robin Hood way of funding our schools, and so as a result, there will be there are more dollars put in for universal pre-K for those students that qualify in low-income areas. That's a start. There is an increase in teachers' pay and gives discretion to principals to increase pay. That's a start. And so we're moving closer towards a better education system in Texas, but there's still ways for us to go.
Now, also tied to that, Jackie, and you touched on this, the bill that caps property tax revenue at 3.5% for cities and counties. That also passed.
Yes, yes, and you're going to see, and we also should note that for cities and counties, there are certain measures that they will individually have to put on the ballot for their voters and for their citizens to vote on. But yes, the three key measures that we were looking at going into the session are funding for our school finance, property tax relief, and just looking at the overall state budget. All three measures passed overwhelmingly, and both Democrats and Republicans worked together to make sure that this happened for all of the citizens in Texas.
Well, you know, property tax, as Jackie mentioned, was one of the main focal points of this session, and you know, certainly there was some reforms that will bring about some relief. What we'll look at in terms of the property tax reform bill is what impact it will have for those lower income citizens that are being priced out of their homes due to the increase in property taxes, and see what type of impact that it will have over the next 2 years before we approach the next legislative session.
Now, there was a controversial bill that was presented, and it comes from basically the San Antonio area. We're talking about the Chick-fil-A bill.
Right.
Protects religious freedoms of businesses. That was very controversial.
Right. You know, when I served on city council, it was not my job to look at every company that came into our city and go through their records to see what donations they made. And that's really what this city council is doing in San Antonio. It was overreach. They don't like the practices of Chick-fil-A, and so they've banned them from certain venues. But the way that you try to overcome issues is not by discrimination, and so it's discriminatory to have issues with someone because of their sexual orientation or sexual preference, but it's also discrimination to have certain practices banning companies because of their religious freedom and religious beliefs.
And Dr. King said that hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And what I'm hearing is that it's discriminatory to discriminate against a Chick-fil-A, so therefore the bill, which is what I believe you asked us about, was a form of discriminatory legislation that would have given entities the ability to discriminate against LGBTQ Texans. And so the bill itself was bad overall because the idea of what happened in San Antonio was a local control issue. And so, you know, cloaked it in local control, but the truth of the matter is that it was very much a religious liberty bill funded by religious liberty advocates to advocate for this bill. And certainly it was several attempts to push forth the idea that, hey, if you don't want to serve certain parts of our society, you don't have to. And so people opposed the bill.
Real quick, one-word answer. Was it a successful legislative session?
Extremely.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Now, they will be back during our 8 o'clock hour, and this time we're going to be talking about national politics. So stick around for our 8 o'clock hour. Right now, it is 7:38, and there